Managers will live or die by the recruitment. Now, that doesn't matter if you agree with me or not. That's not my opinion. It's this man's opinion.
I think managers all live or die by their recruitment.
Now, David Moyes has actually shown in the past at West Ham United, he will put new signings into the team immediately if he has to. Now, there's usually mitigating circumstances around that. Usually, it's desperation, no other choice. Take a look at the current team with Thilo Kehrer. He had to play. We brought him in because Issa Diop had left, but all the centre-backs were injured. He had to play. Now, we're seeing the benefits of that, though. He's been one of our best players so far this season. But if you go back all the way to the January transfer window after we dismissed Pellegrini and David Moyes came in, the two major signings in that window were Thomas Souček, who went straight into the team. But we were desperate for it. We needed a centre midfielder. We needed energy in that team. Thomas Souček came in and went straight into that team. But Jared Bowen didn't go straight in. In fact, this was really good management by David Moyes, and something I don't actually think he gets enough credit for. We signed Jared Bowen from the Championship, a youngish player from the Championship, coming up, scoring goals, confidence, sky high, chest puffed out. He's got his move to the Premier League. He's here to save West Ham. But his first two games were Man City and Liverpool. So what does Moyes do? He keeps him out the starting 11, keeps him on the bench, put him on in both games, but he just keeps him out. And it was good management, because if Jared Bowen had played the first two games in the Premier League, hadn't scored, struggled to get into the games, which would be understandable. It was Man City and Liverpool. We were down at the bottom of the table at this point. But the third game, Southampton at home, he puts Jared Bowen in and he gets a goal from him. Fantastic management, I thought, from David Moyes. But again, he will play Jared Bowen pretty much straight away because he had to. We were desperate. Soufal as well. In the summer transfer window, Frederick picked up an injury. Right, we need a right back. Souček recommended him. But we went and got Soufal and he went straight into the team as well. But again, it was an easy placement of the new signing from David Moyes. But to be fair, Jess Lingard, there was none of that around there. There was no desperate and obvious need to put him in. We saw Sebastian Haller, but he wasn't in the starting 11. Jesse Lingard came in, but Moyes put him in straight away. And that sort of implies that Moyes will put somebody in straight away if he has to. You could argue he's done it with Paqueta, that Paqueta has gone in the team straight away already. But I just want to see bravery from David Moyes now. Once we come back against international break, when we take on Wolves, I want to see bravery. I want to see changes. I want to see something different from David Moyes. Because I understand why he went with that starting 11 against Everton. On reflection, now I've calmed down, I'm taking a look back at it now. I can understand why he's done it. He needed a result. He went with the players he trusted the most. He probably, well, I say trusted the most, probably not Paqueta. He probably doesn't have that level of trust in Paqueta as yet. But maybe he felt obliged to put him in. Maybe he hoped that he would be the difference. He was good enough to make the difference. One moment of magic from him and it would have got the game for West Ham United. But he went with his trusted players in there. Creswell, Fornals, Soufal, Souček, Jared Bowen, Antonio up front. He went with the players he trusted. Now, some of those deserve to start anyway, regardless of the whole trust thing that I've just spoke about. They deserved their shirt for that game. Antonio is probably the one, out of the ones I've just mentioned, he was the one that probably deserved to retain his place more than the others. And you can all argue as to who else deserved and who didn't. We've all got different opinions. But I think what we can all agree on is that they didn't all deserve to keep their shirt. However, I understand why Moyes has done it, because he's went with what he thinks is his safe team, the team that's most likely to get him the result, the ones that he's going to have 11 players on the pitch battling and scrapping for everything, and it's probably going to be enough to get him at least a point and get him into the international break with no pressure, or not as much pressure as he's currently under today. But it didn't work. And this is where I just want to see him rip up his blueprint, because we don't have a style of play at the minute. When you're watching us, you struggle to work out what to do. Like I said on Sunday night, I read out the statistics. 19th for sprints in the Premier League, 18th for possession. We're down at the bottom for tackles, everything. All the big statistics, chances created, 2 goals from open play in 7 games in the Premier League. Nobody else has got 2, or 1 or 0 for that matter. The next worst is, funnily enough, Wolves with 3. So technically, there's your perfect team to play when you come back from the international break. Now, while I don't think the team have an identity, the team don't have something we can look at and say, yep, I see what's going on here. What you can do is do it with the team selection. with David Moyes' choice of players, you can look at that and you can say, yeah, I can see an identity there. I can see why they're playing, or I can see that Moyes has picked them. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because, like I said, he's picking them more because of what they've done rather than what they can do. Because I understand, let's take Souček as the prime example here. I think he deserved to keep his shirt against Everton. I think he had a few good games back-to-back leading into the Everton game. Deserved to play at Goodison Park. However, he had a really poor performance, and at half-time, he probably should have been removed from play. He struggled in the first half. To be fair, our centre midfield struggled. Everton were overrunning us in the middle of the park. It should have been rectified, and it wasn't. He went on to have a poor performance. But like I said, I think he deserved to keep his shirt. However, for the Wolves game, I think that's a different conversation now. I'm not sure he does. Now, while I'm whinging about his team selection, I need to take a look at my own, because my performances over on Spitch have not been good enough. But yet, they're still sponsoring this video. And I know what you're thinking, Gio, there's no Premier League football for 2 weeks. What fancy league are we going to do in Spitch? Well, they've got Nations League Fantasy League, and it's the perfect way for you to introduce yourself to the Spitch Fantasy League app, get used to their point scoring, how the app works, all ready for the Premier League coming back in 2 weeks' time, so you can beat myself and Gonzo in our Hammers Chat League. You can download Spitch by using the link in the description below. It's free to download, it's free to sign up, and the Nations League is free to play as well. Now, there's no prizes up for grabs, but like I said, get it downloaded, get your team in, see how you get on. I'll give you my points total later on in the week as well. You can just compare it that way and let me know in the comments if you beat me or thrash me. I'm Scottish, I'm used to getting beat in the Nations League, don't worry about it. Anyway, shall we get back to moaning about the formations? Let's do that instead. But will Moyes drop him? I don't think so. And this is a frustration of mine, because when I did a video with Gonzo last week, and we were talking about Moyes' favourites, are they undroppable? And I said, well, you've got to judge him on this season. I stand by that. I think you still have to judge him on this season, because we now have that squad depth at the club. We now have a better replacement for Jared Bowen. Last season, if Bowen was out of form, which he never was, but if he was, his replacement was Andrei Yarmolenko. We don't have that now. Now it's Maxwell Cornet. It's a huge difference. The squad depth is big this season. And if it's not good enough, if Moyes feels he can't rotate the centre midfielder or the left winger because the squad depth isn't strong enough, then we've done something seriously wrong. If we've spent 180 million and there's a position in that 11 where Moyes doesn't feel there's adequate squad depth, then we've ballsed up. And I take you back to the start of the video. Managers live and die by their recruitment. And this is where I think sometimes he just paints a target on his back, not necessarily what he said in the podcast, but just with his team selection. And I think that's the big frustration for me. I want to see bravery from David Moyes after the international break. I want to see changes, whether it's the style of play, not the formation, because I've seen us play 3 or 4 different formations this season and we're still playing the same way in them all, which is not very adventurous, not very creative. It's quite hoofball. None of that anymore. So the formation doesn't really make too much difference. It's the way you play it. It's your attitude. It's your intent. It's the personnel that you've selected as well. Because if you play with wing backs, having Emerson left wing back is completely different to having Pablo Fornals left wing back, which is also completely different to having Ben Johnson left wing back. Who you select there would suggest how your intent to win the game. How much do you wish to win the game? I think depending which one you choose, you're giving a little bit of a message to the fan base to some extent. And I just want to see something different from David Moyes. Now, when I refer to personnel as well as the formation, the reason I'm doing this video today is because later on in the week I'm going to be doing the formations that Moyes may play after the international break. The variations will play and who can play where. But I feel like there's a domino effect to the videos, if you like. I need to do this one before I do that one kind of thing. But when I speak about new formations and new players, it doesn't necessarily mean new signings. It doesn't necessarily mean Moyes must put Emerson in, he must put Scamacca, Flynn Downs in, Areola has to be in goal, Cornet must be playing. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. There's also some of his players that he's had last season and the season before that arguably deserves to get into this team, namely Saïd Benrahma. I think so far this season, going forward, he's been our best player. And where was he on Sunday? He was on the bench. He come on, he hit the post and he just looked lively. He looked like he was willing to get on the ball, run at the Everton defence, cause some problems. And he did cause some problems. But I can understand if Moyes suggests that he doesn't want to put the new players in just yet because they've got to settle in. I mean, I would argue that the best way to help a player settle into the Premier League is by playing them in the Premier League. And when you look around the other Premier League games this weekend, other teams didn't have a problem playing their new signings, did they? Look at the team we're up against with Everton. 5 new signings. Cody, Tarkowski, Onana, Idrissa Gana Gueye, Neil Maupay up front who scored the goal. All 5 of them had good games as well, but they were straight in. 5 of Everton's starting 11 were new signings. On Friday night, Fulham won away to Nottingham Forest. They're looking good this season. 5 new signings for them as well. Issa Diop being one of them. Polina, Willian, Pereira and Leno in goal. There you go. That was testing me, that one. But Fulham, 5 new signings in their starting 11. Won the game as well. Now, you could argue that they've got a bit of an advantage because they've got more time on the training ground than West Ham do. So is it easier for them to integrate the new signings? Well, I would argue that the Europa Conference League is the perfect competition for Moyes to get these new players bedded in, to try things in this competition. Because one thing I couldn't get my head around on Thursday night, even though we won, was the question, where is Flynn Downs? A week prior against FCSB, he was, in my opinion, man of the match. A lot of West Ham fans feel he was man of the match. Now, when I watched that game, I thought it was a good performance, but I thought, is he ready for the Premier League? I don't know. It's difficult to gauge against FCSB, a bang average Romanian side. They didn't look up too much, so it was difficult for him to say, yeah, he's ready to start in the Premier League. But then this Thursday, when we played Silkeborg, we could have played him. We should have played Flynn Downs in that game. And again, are they Premier League quality? No, they're not. But had Flynn Downs put in another 8, 9 out of 10 performance, had he put in another man of match contender, had he played an hour alongside Declan Rice and put in a really good performance, but also them two as a partnership looked really good, then I think you've got, is that enough evidence? Maybe not, but you've got certainly got more evidence. You've then got 2 games to say, all right, this is working. But because David Moyes didn't give Flynn Downs that opportunity on Thursday, he almost couldn't play him on Sunday against Everton because that one game probably isn't enough evidence. I agree with Moyes in that regard, but what I don't agree with is only giving him that one game to prove himself. And it sort of puts himself in a bit of a sticky situation where he probably can't then use him in the Premier League. And I just don't feel that we're making enough of those Thursday night games. Now, this is probably coming across quite disrespectful because I appreciate them discussing it as if it's glorified training sessions, as if it's friendly matches. But the reality is, and let's be honest, Thursday we did not play well, but we still won. Now, there's a big helping hand in there from the referee and whatnot. But my point is, that is where Moyes has an opportunity to try new things, new formations, new players in different positions. And he has done. To be fair to him, across both Thursdays, he has tried new things. He's given Skamaka game time. He's given Maxwell Correa game time as well. But what he hasn't done is then taken it forward into the Premier League. He's almost tracked them as 2 completely different competitions, which they are, but almost 2 completely different seasons to some extent, rather than intertwining them, rather than saying, well, that worked on Thursday, I'm going to take that positives and I'm going to put it into the Premier League, into practice. We're not seeing that crossover just yet. But like I said, I go back to the Said Benrahma thing. And when I talk about bravery, it would have been, I say brave, it wouldn't have been that brave actually, to play Benrahma instead of Fornals. It's not a new signing, but it's having that attacking option on the pitch. Somebody that I would argue deserves to be starting anyway. And this is where my biggest frustration with Moyes comes in. And it's just the lack of risk, if you want. Because when that lineup come out, you got the impression Moyes was happy with the point. We went in 0-0 at half-time. We were not playing good at half-time. We were very fortunate to be drawn at half-time. The only reason we were drawn is because Everton weren't up too much either. And we got off with it. So it was a case of, well, look, you've got away with that one. Now do something. And he chose to do nothing. And the only thing I can take from that is Moyes was either happy with the performance or just happy that it's 0-0 and he's just hoping to get to full-time and get away with the 0-0 as well. Even that, I wouldn't have been happy with that. The game finished 0-0. Regardless of the performance, where's the ambition? Where's the bravery from the manager? And that's what I want to see after the international break. He's got 2 weeks now to figure something out. He's got 2 weeks to figure out the way that he wishes to play, because I'm not seeing it. Like I said on Sunday night, if he was playing new signings, if we were trying to play this possession game that he alluded to in the summer, he basically said in the summer we're having more possession, we're going to have more possession. Statistically, we're the third worst in the Premier League. Now, like I said, I'm not against that. Fine. All right, we're not going to have the ball very much. Well, let's play counter-attacking football. Oh, no, because we're second worst in the league for sprints, which is a large counter-attacking football. You kind of associate it with fast breaks and therefore sprinting, don't you? Now, when you look at the Taylor Kerr thing, that's another thing when I speak about bravery, because Kerr has been great when he's come in at centre-back. On Sunday, I felt we were screaming out to play him right back for two reasons. One, Soufal, bang out form. So who else can play there? Well, Johnson and Ashby's out injured, so it's only really Taylor Kerr, unless he's going to do something ridiculously brave, which, I mean, he's not even doing something sort of semi-risky at the minute, which is Ben Rama left wing, so you're never going to do anything completely obscure, which is Emerson right back and Creswell left back, or playing Cornet right back or anything. We're not going to see anything silly like that. So the only other option was Taylor Kerr. And when we did the preview, and I was just praying that actually we would see Kerr right back, who has plenty of experience playing right back. Let's see him over there and bring in Craig Dawson, because we knew, pardon me, that we were going to struggle in open play. Going into the Everton game, we'd only scored 2 and 6 from open play. We knew Everton have got, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, today, Everton have got the second best defence in the Premier League. Now that would have been a statistic going into Sunday's game as well. But regardless of whether it was or not, they've been very impressive in recent weeks with Cody and Tarkowski in there, Patterson on one side. Obviously Pickford's usually in goal and having a really good season too. But they were going to be difficult to break down. Set pieces were probably going to be key. So what did we do? The guy that's scored from a set piece this season, our most dangerous player from set pieces in Dawson, wasn't on the pitch. Now, I'm not saying we should be playing a centre-back in hope of getting a goal. Well, actually, I am saying that, because that's what, genuinely, at half-time, that's what I wanted to see. I thought, can we get Craig Dawson on? So, because I think we had 7 corners in the first half of Goodison Park. I don't think we won one header. We might have won one at most, and that was it. And it certainly didn't test Begovic. So it was a case of, well, can we at least get Dawson on so we've got somebody attacking these corners? But that would have required Moyes to drop A, one of the players he trusts in Soufal, and B, take a risk by putting Kerr over onto the right back. And this is what I want to see from Moyes, taking a gamble, because playing it safe, ironically, is risky for David Moyes, because he's been doing that so far this season. It hasn't been working, and it wasn't working in the second half of last season either. And it felt like he was addressing this in the summer by what he had said in this podcast and various interviews and press conferences after friendlies as well. Granted, it didn't come from Moyes himself, but certainly it came from Pat Nevin after the Rangers game, basically saying this isn't good enough, we're going to have to do something about it. After the Brighton game last season, he came out and said this is unacceptable at West Ham. Some of these players are going to have to go, and we're going to have to get new players in because we're not having that. But the same players that he said that about are still playing, and they're still churning out the same performances. So it's difficult. And I think this is my biggest problem. It's difficult to blame anyone at the minute other than Moyes. Are the players culpable? Of course they are. There's some of the players bang out of form right now, like Jared Bowen, Soufal, horrendously out of form. But they keep getting selected. And like I said, if we turned up at Goodison Park and Bowen was out the team, Soufal was out the team, and Fornals was out the team, he's playing Ben Rama and Cornet and Kerr right back, Dawson centre back, and we got beat, I would at least say, do you know something? Fair play to him. It's not work, but fair play to him. He's tried something different. I'm just pleased that he's dropping these players, but he didn't. He went with the same old, and the result was the same old as well. So we've got this 2 weeks now, an international break, and we need to see something different. I'm going to leave it there. There was another part to this video, but we would have taken up to about half an hour long, and nobody needs that. Gonzo's done a 24-minute video today. This is now going to hit 20 minutes. You don't need a half-hour one from me as well. So I'll be back tomorrow, but don't worry, not all the videos over the international break I'm moaning about David Moyes. There's some complete different ones, and coming up, like I said, there is this sort of formation one, hypothetical formations, if you like, from a fan perspective. That's all I am at the end of the day. However, if you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Catch you tomorrow.